The Unicorn Queen needs your help. Step into this book and help save her avatar from the savage beast lord. Now, this is an 8th level adventure, the Lore of Lurue in Candlekeep Mysteries. And it cops a bit of flack for being a bit heavy on the railroad. But we will touch on that as we approach as to methods to deal with this adventure. Another aspect of the adventure is that it reveals that the characters were the whole time building the foundations of the city area township of Silvery Moon. This may not have the impact the book implies it may have, because Silvery Moon hasn't really been an area since like 2nd edition. So if your players have only been playing for the last so long and have been nowhere near the center of the continent, they're not going to see not going to know anything about Silvery Moon. So I don't think it's going to have that much impact. Players will be like, okay. Another aspect of this adventure is that you may need to prep your knowledge on Lurue and Malar, being that these two lesser deities have a difference of where they stand, and they've constantly been at war. Lurue is the Unicorn Queen, where Malar is the hunt, but not in a skilled respect between hunter and prey in any regards. It is more on the lines of stalking, bloodlust, and bestial savagery. I've provided some links down below, so have a look at those and make sure you're aware of those, and that will let you flesh these out in the characters you play in this adventure. Now, once the characters have the book dropped upon them, they find themselves inside the book. And when they get there, if they try and walk off the path, they will literally hit a wall stopping them, which is keeping them on the tracks. And stopping them from venturing off and keeping them going from one scene to the next as you plan it. Now, if you run adventures weekly and this is a one-off adventure, railroading people like this isn't horrible if you do it once, particularly even if you lean into it. I would make recommendations that you would potentially even add a narrator's voice, telling them and even arguing with the players as the narrator. No, we moved on now and we moved to the next scene. Potentially that could be something you could use. If you lean into it, it actually becomes a more enjoyable aspect of the game mechanic rather than something that feels too limiting. Another aspect to build upon that would be, instead of travel time, the landscape, like pages of a book, with the players standing on it, feeling on a page, picks up, swings over, much like in Inception, and just comes down at them. They huddle down like it's going to crush them. But then they look around as the page is closed and they're on the next set of pages, in front of the next scene, ready to go on with it. Considering this can be run as a one-shot, I would lean into it and let them have that experience. If you're going to play this because your games go for more than 5 hours, or you plan on running this over multiple sessions, then it could become a sandbox. In which case, once the characters meet the satyrs, they could then go anywhere they please as they try and navigate their way back. A scene that you might add, if they do that, would be along the lines of fae and forest-like themes. Keep the theme going. One I can suggest is the characters come across an emaciated man, starving and sitting there and just looking at this log. And it's not until the characters get closer do they realize it's a dryad. The dryad loves the attention the man gives her, but will not willingly let the man go. The man, if dragged away, will fight to come back to bask in the dryad's beauty. This is the myth of dryads, and they enjoy that of the attention that young men give. If attacked, the dryad would just simply flee. And then they could take the man away, but he would just try and sneak off and run back. It's a bit of an ethical quandary as to what do you do with this person who wants to do something that's not good for him and will potentially end up killing him. These sort of encounters could be added for yourself to make the game a little bit more interesting, particularly if you're going to sandbox it and run it for more than 1 4-hour session. When the group get to the satyrs, it is time to do parkour. It is time to be playful drunks, trying to backflip off trees, trying to jump around on rocks, trying to cartwheel, trying to run around and slap each other on the back. You remember, you're going for light-hearted, jovial drunkenness. People who are just trying to find their way home, be guided. They'll jump up on rocks and pull out their wineskins and play it like they're whizzing. They'll do cartwheels and anything that would work well with your group. Run that. That's exactly what the satyrs are going to do. The game also suggests that you have a random encounter scene, and the one that I would most highly recommend, which has the most roleplay and difference, would be something along the lines of the Wounded Wolves. This is a type of encounter we don't get too often, being that most things are just fight and kill, or they just roleplay. This is something that the characters would make their animal handling check, then make a medicine check to pull the arrows and mend the wounds of the wolves before they go running off, and to let them clue in that there's something more going on here. Once the characters then have got to Polvarth Plateau, they will then meet with a treant called Fëanor. This is a good one for players who've never role-played with trees or treants, and allowing them to do this sort of role-play interactions. But one thing I noticed here is that nothing really happens between the plateau and Dewlight. You could potentially just combine the two, and there'd be no loss there either. The Fëanor can just say, hey, like, go over there, talk to Wheelie Dooley, and he'll give you more. As I stuck here, but he goes out into the forest and finds out things. However you play Dewlight, you've now got Wheelie Dooley, and this can be an interesting play for you and your characters. Fairies in D&D are usually anywhere about 2 foot tall. You can play these smaller though, if you so choose. And having that negotiation between a tiny fairy and a large character could be enjoyable. And you could play it so that the characters have to sit down and be very delicate, or they're just going to smash and they're going to turn around and knock over houses and buildings and be a problem. When they do sit down, they're going to get fed tea and biscuits, and they're going to be tiny little cups that they're going to have to sip from, and tiny little rations and supplies that they're going to get stuck in their teeth and then not have eaten. And just all sorts of just silly difference with heights that you can play on here. Another possibility would be that Wheelie Dooley shrinks the group down to their size so that they can deal with it on equal footing. If the group would then be freely to start wandering and start travelling off afterwards, they could then even have encounters with giant insects that you can bring about. Running up a blade of grass and leaping off onto a beetle and crash tackling it, or whatever you want to do, could be an interesting scene. Either way you want to play it is a great Honey, I Shrunk the Kids type moment. From there, the characters move into the webbed path. Now, this is a good one for less experienced groups who've got to learn that just fire will simply get you through, and the Edicaps probably aren't going to pounce on a party who just powers through with no worries. Simple way of dealing with it, but if there are people who are less experienced and just go charging into them trying to fight their way through, they'll get caught up. Great time for you to bring out anything that's spider-like. This could be giant spiders, Edicats, phase spiders, anything you want to do. There are a lot of different spider creatures out in the D&D world, out in anything. But an option you could do would be combine the web path with the hag's hovel and surround it with spider webs. This would mean when the group get to the hag's hovel and they find her having captured a dryad, dealing with her, and then if they fight with a hag, she'll call the Grick out of the well to come and join her. She'll fly up or misty step onto the roof and try and go on the reverse slope of it and take a bit of cover as she casts over and gets out of the way of the Malias. Meanwhile, spiders are coming out, making it difficult terrain with all the webs, and this could be an interesting battle. And if time is of your essence and you can't have too many fight scenes, this might be a big fight that your group need to do without breaking it into 5 different fights, such as the well, the spiders, the hag. It doesn't work great in some senses, also by themselves. The hag by herself goes down pretty quick if you just leave her on the ground and they just surround and pound. So combining these could work well and save you some time. Next is the River's Edge, and this is a chance for the characters to rest. This was fine. I played with a group who only had 2 people, and they needed a long rest. And I played with another group who had 5, and they really didn't. A short rest was more than enough I had to give them. If you want to give consequences for a group who are going into long rests instead of short rests, when they potentially don't need to, you could change the final encounter. But we'll get to that when we get to that final encounter. Just, it's a consideration for those who want to change things up because of the group's choices of what they've done. When they next get to the Cult of Malar, they will find the barbarian sitting there eating, apparently, and just around the fire. They're so-so. But now is your time to let the group really know and feel what the Cult of Malar is about. And they could be doing savage, bestial things, having come back from the hunt and celebrating their hunt. They could be bloodletting. They could be painting their body in the prey's blood, conducting ritualistic dance and celebration. Remember, it could be quite a little bit dark, as you're meant to display what Malar is all about because you've read up on it. Now, here's where your group, this is what changes. It's not a railroad adventure because you're not saying you have to kill this group. You could skip it. You don't have to do it. And it's also the way you approach the group and how you want to take it out is how you're not going to railroad them, even though they've got a path taking them directly there. They could choose to sneak down and poison the food. They could try and get them all drunk so they pass out and become things they don't have to worry about. They could dress themselves up in disguise and come down as barbarians. You can imagine your party now changing, dressing up as barbarians, even though they're little gnomes and and whatever they are, and joining in the celebrations where they try and take the characters out one at a time and sneak them off, or chlorophone them and sneak them away. It's these things that are making it so that you aren't forcing the characters' hands. You're allowing them freedoms, which the adventure may not be limiting in, may be limiting in other aspects of this adventure. Once dealt with them, you now get to Peril of the Pool, and this is this is really easy for you to test and adjust the battle on the fly versus the group. As they get there, the werewolves are conducting the ritual, and they summon the corrupted aspect of Lurue. Now, you can have the werewolves start attacking the group, but if you realize you've got too many wolves and you're bringing the group down too quick, that's when the unicorn can attack the werewolves. Or if you find that the group are easily handling these werewolves, that's when the unicorn can come in and attack them. Having that multi-battle that you can change who's winning at different points through the sway of moving the unicorn, the corrupted avatar, you could change that battle as you need to on the fly as it runs. Now, another option would be if you ran the game with the group taking a long rest and wanted to have a consequence for that, would be potentially the group lock up and the place is a mess. There's a body or two that's been torn apart around the place and they're like, oh, geez, we missed it, whatever it was. They heard the lightning strike as they were walking up to the camp and they missed the whole thing. At which point, while they're investigating the area and having a look around, that's when the corrupted avatar will come out of the bushes. Now, what you don't want to do is just have that avatar against the group. It does not have a lot of hit points. It does not have a high AC and resistances, and it will go down really quickly. So what you potentially want to do is maybe even give it some legendary resistances, as it was written to look like it was meant to have some. You can also bring some corrupted werewolves, much like the unicorn is corrupted. They're also corrupted, and they all come out of the forest as the group are in there. That means it's one force versus the other, but the unicorn could still be unstable and still destroy the werewolves if you found you've tipped the scales incorrectly for this CR. Either way, this is a great adventure. Enjoy this adventure. Have a look on my Patreon. I've got a number of the symbols that you could print off on 3D STLs and hand out to your group and show them, like, hey, look, this is the symbol you find around the neck of Malar. This is the symbol of Lurue. And you could make it a little bit more interactive, the game. Check out those things on my Patreon. Have a look at the other links and the other things I've got here on my channel. And I will catch you next time at the gaming table.